Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Diehl, representing the 125th District in Southwest Missouri, Bates, Vernon, and Cedar County. I'm here to present HB1023. This legislation creates a reduced tax rate for a farmer that sells his or her land to a beginning farmer. As many of you know, the average age of the American farmer is 58, and farms are getting bigger, and as of recent years, many of their owners are sitting in high-rises in New York or LA, much different than what we grew up as having your neighbor be owners. I'm a proud owner of a diversified farm operation where my wife and I are raising a beautiful girl. I have spoken to many constituents about the difficulties of maintaining their family operation and friends that cannot compete with investors and outside money groups, much like Bill Gates and Chinese ownership. This legislation isn't something we've taken lightly. Over the past several months, we've worked with CPAs, interested stakeholders, many various organizations represented here in Jefferson City. As a freshman, I can say that I'm very proud of the work and effort and the diligence behind the scenes and even across party lines to get this bill where it is today. In the bill, we create an income tax subtraction equal to the capital gains received for the sale of farmland to a beginning farmer. Currently, the seller pays a full 4.9% income rate on the sale of the farm. This is currently capped at the first $500,000, or it was $500,000 when we started in the House, and now through bipartisan effort, we've actually raised that to truly move the needle on the sale of farm ground. So it's bracketed, and we'll touch on that in the bill later, but up to the first $2 million is at zero, 2 to 3 is an 80% deduction, and so forward. So if you're looking at simple math, on a 250-acre farm, which is in today's world, I can remember the time when farm ground was bringing just roughly $1,000 around home. And now 7 or 8 is not uncommon. So for just a quick example, a 250-acre farm with a realized capital gains of $6,000, that's roughly 1.5 million, and that would be a tax rate of around $75,000. Through this program, if utilized, the landowner could save up to $300 an acre, and we truly believe that's enough to move the needle and facilitate conversations with the owners, with the further defined and people who qualify for this bill. So we think, and through committee, that this is enough to really have those conversations and invest in the local communities, in the local farmers, and have a hope for the next generation. We provide subtractions for those people that, I'm not oblivious that there's some people out there that can't afford to purchase initially. So we have a revenue subtraction of up to $25,000, and on 100 acres at $200, that gets you to pretty close to the $25,000 real quick. So those people that can't utilize that or need to utilize a crop share, we feel like that's an excellent option for them to be able to utilize, and that isn't saving the owner a whole bunch unless you get in a different tax bracket. I think it maybe maxes out at saving them $1,500 in tax. But that's a nice option for those people that can't afford or looking to get into the industry that's already heavily burdened of entrants. So the one piece of policy, and this stems back, there's 3 or 4 other states that do have similar legislation. This stems back to a senator 5 or 6 years ago that had a piece of legislation similar to that, and he's like, we need to further define and make sure you have those tightened down who can qualify. The Department of Ag is fully ready to implement this program. What we define that as is if you're within 10 years of filing your first Schedule F after turning 18. Before 18, you've got FFA projects, maybe some minute things, so we felt like 18 was a good entry-level barrier. If you're approved for a beginning farmer loan, and that's through a USDA program, you can automatically qualify for this, and that's implemented by the USDA, by the Missouri Department of Ag. And in general, if someone hasn't, this doesn't close the door. If someone at any part of their life, 30 or 40 years old, decide they want to get into farm, it doesn't close the door on them by an age regulation. So there's one final piece of the puzzle that we didn't work into this version, that we do have the beginning version, and that's a qualified family member. So when this legislation first came about, there were several people that were concerned, maybe a generation away, or a niece or a nephew that wanted to utilize this program because maybe that next generation was leaving the farm, or maybe they were going to face the burden of someone passing away and then it maybe just going to the highest bidder. So we did, through this updated version, we have a qualified family member. We followed the Missouri nepotism laws to the 4th degree. That was kind of agreed on in committee. There was one piece we didn't get on there. We might need to work together on that. That was through the committee. There was an adoption piece that they didn't get put on as amendment. I don't know if we can work through that or not to get that put on there, but that's to the point where we got to. So, and like I said, we spoke to the director of ag. They're fully on board to implement this program. In my eyes, I don't know that this is a silver bullet. I do think it'll facilitate some interactions with landowners, with property owners, try to invest in that next generation and keep some of this outside foreign ownership out of state, people that can't have made it where younger individuals can't compete. It was unanimous out of ag policy and rules, and I had a vote on the floor of 153-0. So thank you all for your time, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Just real quick, we're going to establish a quorum. Ron, do you care to call the roll?
Senators Bean.
Here.
Black. Here. Burnscatter. Here. Brown. Here. Carter. Here. Crawford. Here. McCreary. Here. Razor. Here. Washington. 8 members present. You have a quorum.
We're official now. All right. Any questions for Representative Diehl? Seeing none. Anybody here testify in favor of House Committee Substitute House Bill 1023, please come forward.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ben Travelis with Missouri Farm Bureau here to go on record in support of this legislation. This is really exciting legislation, honestly. There's beginning farmer government programs on the state and federal level, from low-interest loan programs with the Farm Service Agency, MASBDA, the Treasurer's Office. There's even beginning farmer provisions within NRCS and crop insurance. But currently in the state of Missouri, there is not a program that helps with transferring that farmland on to the next generation to incentivize that retiring landowner that maybe is looking to pass it on to a first-generation farmer or to a qualified family member to carry on that family tradition. And so, again, this is really exciting legislation. There's nothing like this across the nation, actually, and so really appreciate Representative Diehl bringing this forward, and with that, love to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Liz Henderson on behalf of the Missouri Soybean Association, want to go on record in support of this bill. As the sponsor mentioned, this is kind of the product of a project that we had been working on over the interim, where we sat all the stakeholders down, met with several CPAs, members across both sides of the aisle, to come up with this product that we think is going to really incentivize retiring farmers to pass on their land to more production agriculture. And we think this is a more positive spin on the foreign ownership debate to incentivize people to continue to sell their land to farmers that are members of the United States that will continue to farm this land for years and years to come. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. If you haven't filled out a witness form online, don't forget to do one in person. Next, in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nancy Giddens, representing the Missouri Cattlemen's Association. When we began session, we had 3 priority issues. This was one of them. I'm a perfect example. My great aunt sold her farm. Fortunately, she was in a position where she could sell to me at a reduced price instead of the hunting lodge that was offering her much more. Most families aren't in that situation. We certainly appreciate Representative Diehl's approach to this and would encourage your support as well.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, in favor of.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brent Sempill here on behalf of the Missouri Pork Association. I think you've heard the previous comments. We echo those. The farming industry is getting older and older, and we have a hard time replacing them with young folks to come up with the capital to get into the business of farming. So anything we can do to encourage future generations to be in agriculture, we support it.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody, any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up, in favor of.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, Steve Carroll, registered lobbyist here on behalf of the Missouri Rural Crisis Center, but also as a farmer myself, want to go on record in support of this. I was lucky to be raised on a large family farm that my mom and dad bought a lot of acreage, and we still have it today, but I can't imagine starting off as a new farmer today. You simply cannot afford the equipment and the land on what the land is worth today, certainly. So we think this is a unique opportunity to help new farmers in Missouri. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jacob Knable with the Missouri Corn Growers Association. I'd like to go on the record in support of this legislation and thank the bill sponsor for bringing it forward. I'd just like to echo a lot of the testimony that's already been shared and also add to this that this was a key talking point for the corn growers as we visited with our members across the state this past winter throughout all the different districts, and it generated a lot of positive conversation from farmers. They recognize the need to start addressing some of the obstacles that are out there to get into farming, and they gave us nothing but positive feedback in the efforts to do this. And so with that, would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Emily Lewis on behalf of the Missouri Bankers Association. Happy to be here in support of the bill, Missouri's farmers and rural communities. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Anybody here else in favor of? Anybody here not in favor of? Anybody here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Representative, just a quick comment. Just graduated college. I bought my first farm for $1,000 an acre and couldn't make the payments. So I appreciate you bringing this. Some much needed legislation. So any comments?
No, I do appreciate it. And like I said, being a freshman and not having much experience, it was nice to get everybody at the table. Even, both sides of the aisle realized the need for this, so it was great to get everybody there. Took a lot of work, a lot of effort, but I thoroughly enjoyed the process. It's great to be here today. Kind of a little bit of awe while I was in the room, but I appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes the hearing on House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1023. Next up is House Committee Substitute for House Bill 948 and 915. Representative Dinkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Representative Chris Dinkins, District 144. Today I have before you is House Bill 948 and House Bill 915. These were voted off the House floor 151-0. This has to do with mining royalties that occur on federal or national forest land. And currently, the way it is that any county who has national forest would receive the royalties. And what we're trying to do is make the royalties go back to where the mining actually occurs. So the counties that are receiving the negative adverse effects from mining would also get back the royalties instead of it just going to anyone just because they have national forest in their area. The other portion of this bill, which was voted out as a committee sub, is that there was an administrative order for $1.2 million to be paid to the Iron County School Fund. But however, the way the foundation formula is written, once they received that money, they had to subtract it from their local effort, so then it became a wash and not the way the administrative order was meant to be. We have thoroughly vetted this bill because it has passed out of both chambers before, but was vetoed by the governor because of a conflict with federal statute. So over the past couple of years, it has been thoroughly vetted by many people and many attorneys, and we have finally got the governor's stamp of approval that it will be in good standing now. And so with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions for Representative Dinkins? Seeing none, anybody here to testify in favor of House Committee Substitute for House Bill 948 and 915, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Lance Mayfield. I'm a resident of Viburnum, Missouri in Iron County. I'm not a lobbyist, and hearing about the family farms, all the eggs go in that basket for them, and all the eggs go in the mining basket for us. We have very little private land in the area. The private land is either owned by the mining company or a few of us residents. The rest of the hundreds of thousands of acres in that area is owned by we, the people, the federal government. And when the mining company mines under that land, then those royalties go back to Washington DC, in which a portion of that comes back to the state and gets divided up by those 27 counties. But there's only 2 counties that have to deal with the remnants and the end result of what a mining operation is. So that would be Iron and Reynolds County. So the first lead was taken out of that community back in the late 50s. It's still very active today. In fact, I read a letter today where they said they have 50 years of plans going forward. So the Viburnum community is a town of 700 people. Iron County is a county of less than 10,000 people. I suspect Reynolds County is less than that. So those are the 2 counties that are affected. And this bill that I'm testifying in favor for, both of them, is a very significant amount of revenue for our school system. We, like everybody else, have challenges with retaining teachers, superintendents, principals. We're kind of a pass-through because we just don't have the revenue to pay them. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, where we are, what we deal with. I'm 64, lived there my whole life, so have a lot of knowledge. I used to work for the mining company, so I have significant knowledge about their operation and how they do things. So I would entertain any questions if anybody had any of me.
Any questions for the witness? Senator Brown.
I'm just curious, would this include like clay mining too? Is there any clay mining on national forest land? I mean, there's a lot of clay mining up in my district.
The next guy probably is an expert in clay. I'll let him talk about that.
Okay.
Any further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jim Skaggs. I'm the presiding commissioner of Iron County, lifelong resident. I've been in the mining operation for 45 years. This is something that we've been working on since 2017, I believe. Chris is absolutely correct. We had this bill passed once before. It was in conflict with federal statutes, therefore the governor vetoed it. But this is something that's been going on for, I think the first trainload of lead left our county in 1961. So the royalty payments, 75% of it goes to the federal government, 25% of it gets reimbursed back to the state, and then the state distributes that money based on the percent of acres of you own of the Mark Twain National Forest. So all the lead mining takes place in Iron and Reynolds County, 2 of the poorest counties in the state. This money would go to roads and school districts inside the county, which is what it does now. There's no change in that. This is something that we've really worked on for quite a long time. Been in the mining business for 45 years, I couldn't understand why Iron and Reynolds County was so poor. When I became presiding commissioner and found out in 2015 that this is how the royalties got dispersed, I was shocked. We deal with the lead mines on a daily basis, road maintenance, tailing ponds, air emissions, you name it, we deal with it. Counties that get some of this funds are 200 miles away. So we're going to be left with the legacy of lead mining in Iron and Reynolds County forever. We only believe that this is fair. If this was owned by a private individual, all of that money would have stayed within our county. But since it's owned by the federal government, there's federal statutes that we had to deal with in order to get this legislation to the point that Chris got it. And I want to thank Chris for doing that. A House vote of 151-0 is pretty substantial. And I want to congratulate everybody that's worked on this bill over the years. Many of you have testified before, several years in these hearings, and hopefully this is the year that it happens. So with that, I close and answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Senator Bernskidder.
So how much does each county get right now, and how much will you all get if we change the rule?
Right now, based on last year's royalty payments, there was about $8 million paid by the mining company to the federal government. They keep about 75% of that, or $6 million. $2 million of that came back to the state of Missouri. So the way the mining was allocated last year, where it came from, about 60% of it was mined in Reynolds County, and about 40% was mined in Iron County. So that's how the royalties would be dispersed, based on where the ore was actually mined from, what county it came from.
I thought you said 27 counties got part of this money.
Yeah, that's based on the percent of acres you own of the Mark Twain
So
National
how much did
Forest.
they get?
Some of them as low as 20,000, some of them as high over 100.
And how do they choose? Is it by population?
By percent of acres you own.
Oh, the percent
So
of
the
acres.
higher acres you own, the bigger percentage.
So but Iron and Reynolds already get the bulk of it, but the other counties get some just because they're in the national forest? You said something about
Currently, no,
60.
it's all dispersed based on percent of acres.
Okay, well, you said something about they get 60 and they get 40.
If the bill would pass, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, I
if the
thought you
bill would
meant
pass.
right now. But right now, it's just by your acreage.
We get 6%.
Okay.
Iron County gets 6% of the royalty payment currently right now.
That's your percentage of population of the 27 counties.
Of the acres, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody here else in favor? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Michael Gibbons, representing the Doe Run Company. We are the lead mining company that operates in Iron and Reynolds County, and very much in support of the bill and very complimentary. Representative Dinkins, she has worked her tail off on this for a long time, and it's just the right thing to do, and it makes sense.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody here else in favor of? Seeing none, anybody here not in favor of House Committee Substitute House Bills 948 and 915? Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing on 948 and 915. Today we're going to have an executive session on 2 bills and 1 HJR. So I make a motion to move an executive session. Do I have a second? I have a second. We are in executive session. I move that House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1023 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is for the committee. You just heard this is Representative Diehl's bill that deals with agriculture-related tax deductions for beginning farmers. It was voted out of the House 153-0. Any discussion? Seeing none, I move to vote House Committee Substitute House Bill 1023 do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Ryan, please call the roll to vote House Committee Substitute House Bill 123 out of committee do pass.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Black. Bernscatter. Brown. Carter. Crawford. McCreary. Razor. Washington. By your vote of 8-0, motion carries.
8-0, motion carries. I now move that House Committee Substitute House Bill 948 and 915 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is for the committee. Once again, you just heard this bill by Representative Dinkins. This was voted out of the House 151-0. Any discussion? Hearing none, I move to vote House Committee Substitute House Bill 948 and 915 do pass. Do I have a second? Have a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Ryan, please call the roll to vote House Committee Substitute to House Bill 948 and 915 out of committee do pass.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Black. Bernscatter. Brown. Carter. Crawford. McCreary. Razor. Washington. 8-0, motion carries.
8-0, motion carries. I now move that House Joint Resolution 20 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is for the committee. This is Representative's black bill that he, or resolution that he presented last week on the right to hunt and fish. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ryan, please call the roll to vote House Joint Resolution 20 out of committee do pass.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Black. Bernscatter. Brown. Carter. Crawford. McCreary. Razor. Washington. Your vote is 8-0, motion carries.
8-0, motion carries. I now move that we move out of executive session. Do I have a second? We are out of executive session. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to say this is probably going to be the last meeting of the Agriculture Committee, and I want to appreciate everybody's service on here and for being here, and once again look forward to second half of session next year. So with that, no further business coming before the committee. I move that we adjourn. Do I have a second? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. All those opposed, no. Thank you.